Hello, this is Bob Winkler with,
Mark Saylor.
and we're here to discuss Kansas Assessment Test Security and Ethical Practices. Some major takeaways. We're going to give you some information about preparing physically for administering state assessments, how to document text to speech, what you need to do for test schedules, some tips about proctoring tests, an exhortation to make sure teachers check their end review screen, how you can monitor test progress, and some other info about test security, reactivations, test materials, and test ethics. We have ELA, math and science practice tests, and they don't have any P&P settings. Then they have also some predictive interims and interim tests that will require some P&P settings. The interims are available during the school year. They're aligned with the state curriculum standards, but they're only available in ELA and math. Educators are allowed to build or copy tests. They do provide immediate results, help you evaluate students' learning. They can aid teachers in adjusting their instructions, and additional mini tests are often added during the school year. The state also provides predictive interims, and they give you a range of the student's predicted final score. That range a lot of times is very wide. However, some of the information you get back about the questions, I think is very good. There is no high school math interims. Test windows. The KELPA is from January 30th to March 10th. DLM is from February 6th to April 28th. ELA, math and science are from March 20th to April 20th. History government, it's throughout the year, varies by the grade level. One thing we must emphasize that if you have an accommodation for a student, it has to be in the P&P prior to the student logging on to the test. KELPA has 4 domains of variable length. DLM, depending on the subject, has either 7 or 9 testlets. Math, ELA, and science have 2 sessions. They vary from 45 to 60 minutes in length. And the history, government, social studies is a classroom-based essay that is locally scored. The KELPA, it's required for all identified EL students, even those who do not receive direct services, with the exception of a DLM student. KELPA test itself, test grades kindergarten through 12th. We link the test to a test proctor. It does require integrated headsets. The speaking and writing are humanly scored. SC codes are due by March 10th, and the scoring must be completed by March 31st. DLMs, it's in reading, math, science, and history, government, and social studies. It requires the completion of a first contact survey, the educator portal, and teacher training. Students enrolling after March 20, 2023 with a DLM need not be tested. Enrollments. The student must be tested if they enroll on or before March 20th, 2023. If they enroll after that date, you decide. If they do take a test, the results will be reported. You want to say a little bit about test tickets, Mark?
Test tickets will be the same as they always have been in the past. You just make sure that you update the accommodation sheet, or what we call the text-to-speech sheet out there, and we'll upload that. And then over spring break, I'll download 4 different reports and put together your test tickets for you and send them out in bundles.
Elementary students have one ticket that will work for all subjects and all test parts. Secondary students will have 2 different tickets or even 3 because usually they are in different classrooms. The P&Ps, that's a personal needs profile, must be completed by March 10th, and that will be done via the G Drive. As Mark said, he'll bundle the test tickets and send you to schools after March 10th. Elementary will be grouped by grade and teacher. Secondary will be grouped by grade, content area, by teacher, and by period. Tickets should be printed and reused. Tickets should be stored at a secure locked location between testing. And in addition to that, there's a daily access code that students will need. Each day, CETE releases a set of daily access codes. And so when students log in, they use their credentials, and then at one point they'll be asked for the daily access code for their test part. Be sure to communicate those access codes to your teachers in a secure fashion. Daily access code should not be visible to students who are not being tested. For example, don't leave up the access codes on the whiteboard when teaching a class that is not testing that day. The access codes typically look like this. There'll be a word and then a combination of digits. Let's say for argument's sake, your students are taking part 2 of the ELA. So the proctor would write AVID 601 on the board as the daily access code. Every student in the state is going to be using that same access code. Assessment department also creates a folder on the G Drive that contains daily access codes as a backup. Students need to have headphones or earbuds available if text-to-speech is selected on their P&P. Text-to-speech is available to all students for instructions only. Headphones are required for DLM students. CALPA students, just as a reminder, need a headphone set with a microphone, an integrated headset. Nothing really new about tests this year for ELA and math. Beware of soft breaks. Sometimes in the ELA, for example, you'll come to review end screen, and then it'll go on to a new reading passage. So just because students came to review end screen doesn't mean that test part is over. Same thing is true for math. In English language arts, there are 25 questions per session. There's no delay between sessions 1 and 2. There's no listening piece. Recent arrivals, formerly known as newcomers, do not have to take the ELA assessment. And those are students who arrived after March 20th, 2022. They do have to take the CALPA. Math is 30 questions for each section. Again, there's no delay between sessions. Resource sheets are available for grades 4 through 10. They're available in the Kite student portal, or they can be printed. They can be used on both sections. Manipulatives list is the same as last year. There's no or limited use of calculator on section 2 of both sessions. Grades 3 through 5, no calculators are allowed. 6 through 8, 4-function scientific calculators in Kite, and the same thing for grade 10. Handheld calculators are acceptable, but you must log the usage each and every time.
And so you'll have a calculator log out there to fill out just in case you do use those.
Science, again, is not changed. It's fixed form, about 45 to 60 minutes each. History and government, as we've said before, is an essay. It's classroom-based and graded by the teacher. You don't have to test students who arrive after April 14th, 2022. If you have any questions, contact Leslie Nelson at 4114. You want to speak to this?
Okay, for the high schools only, of course, if you're gonna be doing ACT, the state ACT is gonna be on the 28th. I've uploaded one set of rosters already. I'll send up the final set of rosters on January 13th. So one thing I really want you to be careful about, I know we kind of beat this to death every year, is reclassifications. This not only applies to ACT, but it will also apply to the CAP assessments. If you reclassify a student after the window opens, we may end up taking a hit in 3 different areas. So we could essentially end up taking a hit on ELA, math, and science for a student. So please make sure all reclassifications are done by Valentine's Day of 2023.
Amen. SC codes are special circumstances codes. They can only be entered by Mark Saylor. Send SC coding request and documentation to Mark by email. The codes are listed on pages 15 through 20 in the examiner's manual, and they're due no later than April 21st, no exceptions. SC codes can override scores. Here are the ones that are probably most important. SC01, students suspended for 4 weeks or more, and the suspension overlaps the local testing window. In high school, it's 4 weeks. In the second semester, these students are not required to be tested. If they're suspended for less than 4 weeks, they're still required to be tested. SPED students, you're suspended for more than 10 days, are still required to be tested. For absence in SC04. These students, if we have this code, will be excused from accountability. To be excused from that, you must have filed child in need of care petition or truancy papers, and they're filed with the county attorney via Dr. Grimes. The absences must occur during the first week of the local testing window. Absences must be for a minimum of 2 consecutive weeks prior to the local test window. Text-to-speech documentation. Test coordinators are required to keep a file of the need for text-to-speech, and that's actually done for you on the G Drive. I create a table on the Google Sheet that shows every kid's test score that would qualify them for text-to-speech, or the ones that would disqualify them from text-to-speech. Be sure to look at pages 25 and 26 examiner's manuals, and accommodations must be entered on the student's P&P in the educator portal. Mark and I will do that part. Text-to-speech rules have not changed. Just want to emphasize a couple of things. It has to be documented in a student plan and must be regularly used for classroom assignments and all tests in the classroom. 50% of the time in the classroom assignments, 100% of the time for classroom tests that count towards grades. All right, so what's the rule for qualifying? You need to be 1 year below grade level, around the 20th percentile, or below, 1 year below on FastBridge or MAP. This is just kind of a nice little chart. Shows like text to speech audio, and a lot of times we just call it TTS. Directions, it's available for all students. You don't have to do anything in the P&P. Text to speech audio for science, it's available to all students. So you don't have to do anything in the P&P. Text to speech test items, that's not available to all students, and it does require you to fill out a P&P. Text to speech for non-visual passages and test items. It's not available to all students, and it requires approval from KSDE. The popular strategy that I've used is have the student read the assessment aloud to himself or herself, and that's not the same as having a TTS accommodation. Students may be in a room where a test proctor where the test proctor reads to themselves out loud. No other students may be in that room. The proctor may not read it to them. There's no text to speech, no headphones. Why don't you talk a little bit about this, Mark?
Before you ever have a student log in to the Kite student portal, make sure that they are logged out of the Chromebook. And then when you click down there on the taskbar, I believe it's a right click, you'll see a folder that says TPS apps. And in there, you should have that link to the Kite student portal. So just make sure that they are in kiosk mode. If there's ever any question, have them log out and log back into it so that you can see them do it. If you see anything like an orange box around some text, then you know that they are not in kiosk mode. If they have any other window that they may have access to, like a browser window, they're not in kiosk mode. So just shut them down. I don't think we have anybody that's using iPads anymore, except for maybe the K through 2 Kelpa kids. So they've cleaned that up a lot compared to the way it used to be. No wireless peripherals whatsoever. So if a student wants to use their own wireless mouse or their own wireless keyboard, no, we supply that to them. Nothing where they have a flash drive or a USB drive, anything like that stuck into the Chromebook itself. So, and just make sure that the student or the teachers are up walking around. I don't want to walk into a classroom again with the monitor where the teacher has his back to the class and his feet up on the desk. That does not go over well with the principal. So, common sense.
Teachers should verify the review end screen. This is a screen at the end of a section or at the end of a test part where you can see whether or not they've answered each question. Students blows by that, have them log back in immediately and forward to that screen. Test item security. Can't store or save on computers or any personal storage devices any test items. Test items may not be shared by email or file sharing systems or reproduced in any way. Never, never, never take a picture or movie of a test item. Do not allow the use of cell phones in a testing room for any reason. Every year you will always have students who say, there's no correct answer, or there are two correct answers. Don't read the question. As tempting as that is, don't read the question. See if the student's correct. Instead, say to the student, choose the answer that you think is best. There is one correct or one best answer to each question. Carefully read the question and work the problem. You may take note of the test part, question number, and student's name, and report that information to your building test coordinator, who will share it with Mark Saylor. And Mark can then forward that over to CETE, and then they'll look at the item. Don't call KSDE or CETE. Part of the reason we say that is there are 300 districts in the state, and if they just received one call from each district, they'd be overwhelmed. So if you have concerns, questions, call Mark. Building test coordinator. They're required to keep a copy of the building's test schedule, keep that updated on the G Drive, keep a copy of trainings, reviews done by all building personnel involved in training. And actually, what we have for teachers and paras, we'll send you a link where they fill out a questionnaire about some of the things that they read over, and that will act as your copy of who's been trained and who has not. Building test coordinators train all staff on their test security. It's pages 6 through 8 in the examiner's manual. We used to always have a physical copy where teachers agreed to abide by the guidelines. Now we do that on the G Drive. Another thing that we just want to emphasize is store your test materials in a secure, locked area. Report any breach of test security, loss of materials, etc., to Mark or myself, and we'll contact KSDE or ACT for the ACT test. Principals and building test coordinators should monitor the testing status of students in the Kite Educator portal. And it's fairly simple to do. You can see who is tested, who hasn't tested. And I would do that daily. Anything you want to add to that, Mark?
Just for anybody that's new to this process, I've updated some of the old documents and added some new ones. So I'll make sure I get all those out to you. And if you ever have a question about any of this whatsoever, just let me know, and I will come out and sit down with you, and we can step through the whole process from beginning to end. It's no big deal to me, because you're going to see me anyway, whether you want to or not.
Why don't you speak to reactivations?
Reactivations, you'll have a log out there that you'll have to fill out whenever you reactivate a student. The one time you have to worry about it is if the student test stage or test session is in complete status and there's unanswered items. Otherwise, you'll never reactivate, because if it's in progress timed out or not used, there's nothing you have to do. The student just logs in with whatever daily access code is available for that subject. So this slide right here just tells you basically what's on the log itself. The log that I'm going to send you that's part of, I believe it's called test monitoring and reactivations, has a couple lines that are filled out with some dummy information. So you just use the same log for KELPA and CAP both. There again, any questions, just call me.
Students who have omitted items or didn't finish tests session due to illness, time constraints may be reactivated. If you reactivate a student, you should monitor them, make sure they're only working on the questions that are left blank. And there's a 90-minute window after a student initially signs on where they can sign back in without being reactivated, correct?
Well, the session should last for 90 minutes. If there's a significant lapse of time in there after that 90 minutes initial window, I think it's 29 minutes and 30 seconds, then they'll get logged off. So that's basically what the 90-minute window is referring to.
Okay, yeah. Non-acceptable reactivations. You'll have some kids that do this. They complete all the items, but you could tell they weren't putting any effort in it. They were just clicking through. If you see a student like doing that, have them stop testing for the day, contact the building test coordinator, and I would have some type of pep talk with the student before you let them go back into the test. Again, they cannot go over and change answers that they've formally answered. All right, review. All building level personnel must be trained in test security before local testing begins. Proctors must be an employee of the school system. They must sign an agreement either electronically or on paper. And most of you will just have your staff do this after answering a questionnaire on the G Drive. This is what the paper copy looks like.
And just to clarify something on this, one reason why those two slides are in there is because I've got one school that feels better about doing the paper copies instead of doing it online. And I told them that was fine. So you do it however you want to, but preferably do it online if you can.
Those are the things that you need to have on your test schedule. Specific dates and times, teachers, location in the building, and what's being assessed. You may have appropriate manipulatives available, but you can't require students to use them. You need to remove or cover bulletin board displays, fact tables, charts, etc. that may help a student or give them assistance during a state assessment. No one may review test or analyze test items before, during, or after the assessment is administered. Test materials may not be copied, reproduced, photographed, or paraphrased. The classroom teacher is responsible for collecting and destroying student notes. Test tickets should be destroyed and shredded, literally, after the completion of the test. And sanitize your manipulatives as per building guidelines. All right, for your teachers, they should read sections 3, 4, and 5, basically pages 20 through 48 of the assessment manual. You'll also be given an appropriate testing practices fact sheet. And not anything really new in the updated fact sheet, but teachers and proctors should read this one carefully. Some of us will receive a visit from KSDE to monitor your testing. Mark and I will help you out on that.
Oh, and just to clarify a little bit on the monitoring, it may not work the way that it did last year. KSD has indicated that they want to take more of an active role in visiting the schools to see what's going on. And since we're right in their backyard, that probably doesn't bode real well for us.
We'll probably see a visit. Some key points. Teachers must read to the students the scripts in the examiner's manual. No matter how boring and repetitive they are, they need to read them word for word. They can't respond to students in any way that would help them understand the question better or help them better analyze the question. You can't do anything that's going to encourage a student to change or edit their response. You can't direct students to use certain strategies at the beginning of the test session. It's okay to do it the day before the assessment, or just remind them again the strategies you want them to use. Once testing has begun in a subject, no reviews, teaching, practicing, and testing items, indicators may be conducted. Just with the students who are taking the test. You wouldn't think you have to say this, but we've had examples of all these in Topeka. You can't coach or cue students anyway during test administration. This includes gestures and facial expressions. Teachers may not say nor do anything that will let a student know whether an answer is correct. You can't ask students how they got an answer. Teachers and staff may not tell students to redo or review any part of the test. Students cannot be required to use scratch paper. They may use it, or they can't be required to use online tools like a highlighter. We've had people who've actually graded scratch paper. That's a no-no. Again, these are things that we've said before, just want to emphasize them again. You can't give the meaning of words in the text or in the questions. Teachers may not read anything from the reading passage, the story. With the exception of the reading passage on the reading test, teachers may pronounce isolated words, phrases, or sentences when requested by a student. These would include students who aren't receiving text-to-speech. Again, it should be isolated words, isolated phrases, not the whole thing. Just kind of in summary, we can't write enough rules because we can't think of everything people will do. My basic point of judgment is, with what you're doing, would it appear to be unethical to an outsider? Could the newspaper or TV make this into a story? What does my conscience say? If your actions, cues, facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, etc., encourages a student to make a certain answer choice or redo a question, it is wrong. Regarding monitor visits, state says they're going to be 5 to 10% this year. And they're using an adaptation of the NAEP checklist. Mark Saylor and the building test coordinator will walk down testing areas prior to a visit. And this is what it'll look like.
Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any hands.
I don't see any
popping up.
hands up.
So, hey, we must be good, right?
All right.